All right, so we get to this last topic, and this was Byron Scott having a conversation with Michael Cooper on his podcast. And I thought it was a good conversation to have. Let me see what this is. Okay, cool. I thought this was a good conversation to have. Just to reiterate how people view Kobe and how people view Michael Jordan, and then how they contrast that with LeBron James. They just see it different, especially older players, old school players, people that was cut from the same cloth as Kobe, that understood what he stood for, understood what Michael Jordan stood for, and understand it. This is a watered down version of what they played through in the NBA, right? But Michael Cooper asked Brian Scott, who, if you had to cut, or you had to start bench cut these guys, how would you do that? And this how he answered that question.
Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Between those three, who you gonna start?
Oh, I got to start MJ.
Okay, why?
Probably the best offensive player that we've seen. I mean, MJ had no weaknesses. Could take you off the dribble, can pull up. Obviously towards the end of his career, he was able to shoot threes. He could post you, and then he gonna guard your ass. So I'm MJ would be the starter.
Who you gonna bench?
I had to bench Kobe. He had to come. Okay. He had to be Coop. He had to be the sixth man.
And why you cutting LeBron?
Because he's not better than those two.
Okay. All right.
in my mind. And I love LBJ, but he's not better than those two in my mind.
see, that was plain and simple. He said he starting MJ because he ain't had no weakness in his game, and this is what people don't understand. And people think this is a knock, but it's not. If MJ had no weakness in his game, and that made him the standard in basketball. And I usually say standard for wing players, because I think the standard for post players is obviously Hakeem Olajuwon, in my opinion. On both ends of the floor. If we had to say who's the standard, who I want you to study as a post player, study Hakeem. As a wing player, study Michael Jordan. As a point guard, it's a couple of guys you can study, right? So as a point guard, I probably would say, oh man, that's so tough as a point guard. Man, there's a lot of them. I'm thinking it could be Mark Price. Study Isaiah. I'm sorry. If you're a point guard, study Isaiah. If you are a point guard, study Isaiah, standard. If you're a wing player, study Michael Jordan or Kobe, standard. If you are a post player, study Hakeem, right? Those are the three standards for me, right? So when Michael Jordan is mentioned and you hear people say he had no weaknesses, that's what the heck they meant. He didn't have no weaknesses. And then the reason why Kobe gets, associated with that is because he was just as flawless as Michael Jordan, but just a tad bit under him. Probably a lot under him, but still closer than anybody else that has ever played the game. There's nobody else is as close to Mike as Kobe is. So if Mike is the standard and Kobe was the closest player to the standard, how can someone be better than Kobe how can you even say LeBron is even in the conversation with Jordan when he hasn't passed Kobe? And that's what Byron Scott is saying. He was like, man, LeBron is not as good as Kobe and Mike. Do you study the game at all? Like, he's not as good as Kobe and Mike. He's just not. And people try to use that as a knock on Kobe by saying, oh, he's just like Jordan, so that's why you can't consider him. Yeah, you can't consider him better than Jordan, but that don't mean that you got to put 5 other people ahead of him just because he's just like Jordan. You can't say, oh, Kobe's just like Jordan, so that means LeBron's better than him. That's not how that works. LeBron's not better than Kobe. But yeah, Kobe is a copycat of Michael Jordan. Cool. So that just means when you're comparing him and Jordan, well, you obviously can't be better than dudes you copying, which is what Kobe said as well. He was like, man, I learned so much from Mike. Man, I never say I'm better than Mike. I learned more from Mike just observing him than I did asking him questions, but I learned by doing both. But just picture that. He said, man, I just observed Mike and learned a lot, but I also was able to ask him a lot of questions later in my career. So he was like, I learned too much from Mike to say I'm better than him. Imagine not having a clue or answer for something, and you call Mike, and he's just like, oh yeah, I seen that. This is what you do. And then he breaks it down so eloquently, and then you do it, and it works to a T. And you like, shoot, this is the dude I thought I was better than. Like, that's crazy. Every time I call him, he got an answer for my issues. He got an answer for my problem every single time I call him. I can't possibly say I'm better than that dude. I'm gonna stop doing it. It was good for my motivation to get better every day. My motivation to actually try to be as good as Mike or as better than Mike. Yeah, that's good for my motivation to practice and to study film. But now that I'm retired, you can't get me to say I'm better than Michael Jordan. That was Kobe's attitude, right? So my point is this: he's the closest thing to Mike. That's not a knock. That's not an indictment. That's a plus. To be the closest thing to the standard is a plus. LeBron is not better than Kobe, right? So let's stop the bull crap on that. And I appreciate y'all for tuning in and sticking with me the whole 2.5 hours. Shout out to all the channels that's doing this work, man, and spitting out all this truth against the mainstream media, against the LeBron media and all these false narratives. Shout out to Ticket TV, Dreamers Pro, Sports T, Sports and Fitness Rant, Michael Jordan Fans are the best, Carsino for Life. All of these channels is out there giving it to you raw. Too Raw for TV, 78 Sports, Uncommon, Common Sense. Shout out to him as well. Shout out to Kwame Brown, Bus Life, Format Podcast, Bird's Eye View Podcast. Shout out to everybody. Right. So shout out to everybody, man. Y'all go check all them channels out that I mentioned, man. But definitely shout out to Sports T and Ticket TV, man. Those my people right there, man. So I'll catch y'all on the next stream, man. Tomorrow, full panel Friday. We're here with the full panel, man. So shout out to everybody, man. Catch y'all on the next one.